Hi, I'm Bonita and I am early retired. I'm not old enough yet for Social Security. I'm living on a low income and I am living off of savings. And right now, I'm spending the winter in my RV in the Rio Grande Valley in South Texas. I normally live in Kansas. I have frugal videos all year round, and I hope that you will join me this year in 2025 as we share ways to save money and live our dreams. It's going to be in the 90s today, and it's already warm this morning. So I'm going to start out by making my iced coffee. The instant coffee, I feel like, is the trick to making a really good iced coffee. So I put in 2.5 teaspoons of the instant coffee. And I make sure that it's mixed up really well. I add some creamer. I add a couple of squirts of my caramel syrup. This is from Walmart. I add about a cup of milk. And then I add the rest ice. And it makes a perfect iced coffee the way I like it every single time. It took me some perfecting and practicing to come up with an iced coffee that I liked. I actually prefer this to getting a coffee out. The other day, Starbucks had free coffees, and some of the iced coffees were free. So I was able to get like almond milk and caramel, and it still didn't taste good. I had to bring it home and try to fix it with my own stuff. And even then, it tasted a lot weaker. So I'm sticking to my crafted homemade coffee drink that I have practiced making myself. And this is just an old spaghetti sauce jar, and I just feel like it adds to the charm of drinking it. And the best part about making that iced coffee here in the camper is it's only 288 calories. But if I would go purchase that out, it would probably be pushing 600 calories. So, what would you do to save a little money? At home, I would never do this. But here in the camper for 3 months, I am spending a lot on half gallons of milk. And I can save 66 cents by just saving 2 half-gallon jugs and rinsing them out, drying them, and adding my gallon of milk to the 2 half-gallons. I can even change the date with a marker on my half-gallons if I really want to. But I'm just spending a lot. I mean, 66 extra cents for a gallon of milk. And I go through a lot of this because when it's hot down here, I make a lot of iced coffee. So I do this to cut back on my spending, and also so it will fit in my refrigerator. Because as these little refrigerators go in the RVs, they're set up with half shells that hold in the half-gallon of milk so that when you're driving, they don't fall out. And so I can't fit a gallon of milk in my refrigerator. So let me know, how far do you go to save money? If it's going to save you 50 cents, 66 cents, like I just did, how far would you go to save some money if it meant you didn't have to go back to work? And see, here's my little half shelf, which is why I need a half gallon to fit in here. So now my 2 half gallons will fit in my refrigerator. Lunch today is a bacon and Swiss chard from my garden and tomato sandwich. And right now they're setting up right across the street outdoor karaoke. But don't worry, I'm not going to subject you to that. We're going to go over to the clubhouse and go to a mariachi band free performance instead.
Mi gallo es el asesino, cuando se sacude canta, cuando se sacude canta. Mi gallo es el asesino, mi gallo es el asesino, cuando se sacude canta, cuando se sacude.
These little clips that I show you that are these mariachi bands and these performances, they are high school kids. And in this mariachi band alone, all of their uniforms were made in Mexico and stitched in Mexico, and they are totally authentic to go with the type of music that they learn from a very young age. In fact, some of these kids have been playing for 6 years when they're a senior, and some of them in that group were only freshmen. I have another concert that I'm going to go to this weekend, and I'll get some clips of that later for another video. I try to pick clips of different types of performances so you can get a taste of the culture down here. I hope you can tell from what I share in my videos that there are so many things that you can do and see and experience on a low income for little or no cost. Now, right now, I'm in this area and it may seem like there's a lot of things that you can do for little or no cost, but most areas are like that. But we have to talk to people. We have to search for things sometimes on Google. We have to get out and explore. Those things don't just come to us. And I've learned about a lot of these things that were available from other people that have come to this park year after year and built on their knowledge of what there is to do and see here in the area. I have an Irish festival coming up that is free down here that we're going to go to. There's just tons of stuff like this. And back in Kansas, I live in a rural area, but there's still lots of free things. There's free parks, there's free county lakes, there's lots of things to see and do in Kansas. And maybe we'll take a road trip this summer and I'll show you some of those as well. Even though I have worked it into my budget to come down here to South Texas and live in my RV for 3 months so that I can be out of the Kansas winter, I still conserve and I still live like I would at home. For instance, I need to do some dishes today. So I keep my propane shut off and then I turn it on about 5 minutes before I need to do some dishes. And then once my water has heated up, I shut it off. And I am still way above half of a tank of propane, but I know my neighbors have filled theirs up at least 3 times. But I can hear their propane heater kick on and kick off and kick on and kick off all the time. And when I turn on that little switch, I can hear mine kick on. But that's just a reminder to me that I don't need hot water the entire time. And we do this at home too. We heat up our water with our electric water heater and then we shut it off. And that usually lasts us 2 days. But down here, maybe 5 minutes a day, I will turn it on, do my dishes, shut it off. Now, we filled our tank with $1.73 a gallon propane before I left Kansas, and I'm really thankful we did that. They do have a propane truck that comes around in the park every single day, and you sit out a chair with this big orange paper that says you need a refill, and they will stop and put propane back into your propane tank. But last year's prices were $2.99 a gallon for them to do that. I paid $1.73 in Kansas. So I'm trying not to get a refill. I didn't get a refill last year, and I'm going to try to make it to get home to get my refill there because that is expensive. So I'm not going to pay more than $3 a gallon for my propane. Because of how expensive it is for propane down here, I have chosen to run a little blower heater that I will use when it is getting just way too cold in the RV. I used it in January when we had those below freezing temperatures. I ran it at night. It's a very safe little heater. If it falls over, it shuts off. There's lots of space around it, and it's very small, just like a little tiny fan. But using that the whole month of January, my electric bill only went up $10 in the camper. And from researching this at home before I left, space heaters can be dangerous. So you have to make sure you have a safe type of heater that will shut off when it falls over, like mine, and that you have lots of space around it, but they will only raise your electric bill about $15 a month for most of them. So they can be an affordable way to heat. And that's why I choose to use that rather than turn on the propane. Some of the other things I do while living in my RV is I save all of my empty coffee containers and jars, and I store items in there that might draw any type of bug or ant. Living in an RV can attract them even easier than in a house, and I also keep my drains plugged, and that keeps anything from coming up the drains like an ant or a roach. I learned this living in Texas in my 20s. I lived in an apartment down here for about 2.5 years. In fact, my fourth child was born in Texas. And I was taught by a lady that lived next door that if you keep the stoppers in the drains, that would keep you from getting your neighbor's insects. If they had roaches, they might come up through the drains at night and come into your apartment as well. And she taught me to always plug the drains. So I do that here as well. I hope you've enjoyed this video of some of the frugal ways that I do things living in my RV to save money. I hope they help someone out there today. Maybe someone is living in an RV, or someone can use some of these tips even in your own homes. We're back in long sleeves again today, and it is in the 50s. So the weather can be all over the place down here. Yesterday it was 92. Today it is supposed to be 61 for an hour, I think. The rest of the day it'll be in the 50s. So I can definitely sympathize with everyone all over the country that's dealing with these cold temps. Kansas is back in the single digits, which is why I'm down here instead of in Kansas for the winter. Thanks for watching today, guys. I hope you will give me a thumbs up or comment below. That helps me so much with this channel and helps get my videos out there. And I appreciate each and every one of you taking the time to listen today. I hope to see you soon.